today, Lesson 27. To start this lesson, we have 3 exercises for the right hand only. The first of them, exercise 290, gives you another chance to practice playing thirds. Try to play each group of 4 semiquaver thirds as smoothly as you can in a legato style. Then, at the end of each group of semiquavers, you'll have to lift your hand slightly from the keyboard and move it into position for the next group of 4. Remember to start slowly, only gradually increasing your speed. Exercise 290. Exercise 291, again for the right hand, has groups of 6ths to be played legato. Notice the fingering. The thumb and 4th finger alternate with the 2nd and 5th fingers. This should enable you to play each group of 4 quavers quite smoothly. Exercise 291. The last in this group of 3 right-hand exercises, exercise 292, is more difficult than the others. You'll need to stretch your fingers really wide if you're going to move smoothly from 1/6 to the next without lifting your hand from the keyboard. In fact, you may find you just can't get it right at first, especially if your hands are quite small. Anyway, there's no need to worry. If you do find this, or any other exercise, too difficult, just leave it for the moment and come back to it later when your technique has had time to develop a bit further. Here is exercise 292. On page 314 of your booklet, there's an introduction to the dotted quaver. You already know that a dotted note is half as long again as the same note without a dot. A dotted minim equals a minim and a half, and a dotted crotchet equals a crotchet and a half. So a dotted quaver is a quaver and a half equal to 3 semiquavers. A dotted quaver is often found together with a semiquaver, the 2 notes filling 1 crotchet beat. This pattern, a dotted quaver followed by a semiquaver, creates a very catchy rhythm that's been exploited in a host of well-known pieces of music. In fact, you'll be learning to play 2 pieces based on this rhythm later in the lesson. But first, let's look at the examples on page 314 to see the various kinds of rhythmic pattern that dotted quavers can set up. Example A shows the most common and straightforward combination of dotted quavers and semiquavers. It sounds like this. Now, example B. Example C has a semiquaver tied to a dotted quaver. this example D, which includes a dotted quaver rest. All those examples were in simple time. Now we'll take a look at dotted quavers in compound time. Example E. Example F. And finally, example G. A tied note and a rest help make quite a complex rhythm here. When you've tried out these examples for yourself, move on to exercise 293. It's best to practice this exercise with the two hands separately at first. And it's worth comparing your own performance carefully with the one on the tape, just to make sure that you are getting the rhythm exactly right. Exercise 293. Our solo piece, Arizona, uses the dotted quaver and semiquaver combination in the left-hand part. This gives you a regular, steady rhythm to keep up, while the right hand plays a variety of thirds and sixths. The rhythmic left-hand part is actually quite straightforward to play, although there is just one point to watch for. If you look at the second bar of the last line of music on the first page, page 316, you'll see two sets of fingering given for the last three notes in the left hand. One set of fingering is written in brackets above the other. The reason is that you may find the jump from the second finger on the last note of the bar, a semiquaver A, down to the G at the start of the next bar too awkward for you. The alternative 1-2-1 fingering given in brackets might make it easier, because with your thumb on the semiquaver A, you can stretch your hand down towards the G that follows. As a matter of fact, you might find there are other places in the left hand where this 1-2-1 fingering suits you better than the usual 2-1-2. Do use it if you want. You need to watch the fingering in the right-hand part as well. Sometimes it may not be quite what you expect. Try to play the thirds and sixths in the right hand as smoothly as you can. And don't forget the key signature, F sharp. But in general, Arizona is a fairly easy piece to play, and we hope you'll enjoy it. Arizona. to now, we've been introducing you to the major scales one by one. But if we go on doing this, it'll take up too much time, and in any case you'd find it very repetitive. You know how a major scale works, what sequence of tones and semitones it needs. And you also know that you can construct a major scale starting with any note on the keyboard. So, you could really make up all the possible major scales for yourself. In fact, we've listed them all for you, with their key signatures, on page 318. As you can see, they're arranged according to the number of sharps or flats in their key signature. So the sharp keys go from G major, with 1 sharp in the key signature, to C sharp major, with 7. And the flat keys similarly stretch from F major with 1 flat to C flat major with 7 flats. The sharps and flats appear in the key signatures in a fixed order, which is set out for you at the bottom of the page. So, F sharp is the first sharp to appear, and you find it in all the sharp keys. B sharp is the last, and only appears in one major key, C sharp. The flats work in the same way, with B flat as the first, and F flat the last of the 7. Let's take a quick look at the major scales that are new to you. You've already met all of them up to 3 sharps and 3 flats. The new sharp keys are E major with 4 sharps, F, C, G and D. B major with 5 sharps, F, C, G, D and A. F sharp major with 6 sharps, F, C, G, D, A and E. And finally, C sharp major, 7 sharps, F, C, G, D, A, E and B. The new flat keys are A flat major with a key signature of B flat, E flat, A flat and D flat, D flat major with 5 flats, B, E, A, D and G, G flat major with the key signature B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat and C flat, and finally C flat major with 7 flats, B, E, A, D, G, C and F. In general, the keys with the most sharps and flats are used least often, which makes life easier for the keyboard player. You're not expected to memorize all these key signatures immediately. They'll become more familiar with practice. You can always use this page to refer back to. There's one more point to make about the major scales before we move on. If you're very bright, you might have noticed that there are 15 scales here, but there are only 12 different notes on the keyboard. Where do the 3 extra scales come from? The answer is that there are 3 pairs of duplicate scales, identical scales with different names. D flat major is in fact the same scale as C sharp major. F sharp major is the same as G flat major, and C flat major is the same as B major. Try these scales out on the keyboard, and you'll see for yourself that this is true. On pages 319 and 320 of your booklet, all the basic chords, both major and minor, are laid out for you in their 3 positions: root, first inversion and second inversion. Some are given 2 names. In the top row on page 319, for instance, you can see that D flat major and C sharp major are different names for the same chord on the keyboard. A word of warning, though. If this chord was C sharp major, it would have to be written with sharps instead of flats. The root position of the chord would be C sharp, E sharp and G sharp. The same goes for all the chords with 2 names. They may be identical in practice on the keyboard, but in written music they're always represented differently. You can go through these chords at your leisure, and use this summary table as a reminder in future when you need to find a particular chord. We're going to move on to play some of the chords as arpeggios. All the exercises on page 321 have a chord in its root position, then in the first inversion, second inversion, and finally in the root position again, an octave higher than at the start. These exercises are excellent practice for your technique, as well as giving you a chance to play some less familiar chords. Exercise 294 is based on the B-flat major chord. Like all this group of exercises, it's to be played with the two hands separately. As usual, the left hand fingering is written under the notes, the right hand fingering above. Exercise 294. Now, exercise 295, the E-flat major chord. Exercise 296, the chord of A-flat major. Exercise 297, the D-flat major chord. Now for a minor chord. Exercise 298, F-sharp minor. Finally, exercise 299, the chord of C-sharp minor. Our piece with backing group for this lesson is Honky-Tonk. It's a lively number, again with the dotted quaver and semiquaver pattern. As long as you watch the fingering carefully, and remember the key signature, F-sharp, the piece shouldn't prove too difficult. Don't be thrown by the accidentals, which include B-sharps and an E-sharp. If you're at all unsure about these notes, have a look back at page 288 of your Lesson 24 booklet. The repeat, halfway down the first page of the music, shouldn't cause you any problems. You've run into this sort of thing several times by now. Play the bar marked 1 the first time through, then jump straight over it to the bar marked 2 the second time. Anyway, you'll hear how it goes now. Here's Honky-Tonk with keyboard and backing. course, you'll have to put in a good deal of slow practice before you can attempt honky-tonk at that speed. When you're confident that you can play the piece quickly and accurately, then try it with the backing, which you'll hear now. To complete this lesson, there are 4 exercises with arpeggios across 2 octaves, using the thumb-under technique. The difference between these exercises and the ones in the previous lesson is that they all start on a black key. This alters the fingering you use, both for the right hand and the left, as you'll see when you begin to try the exercises for yourself. Here's exercise 300. Exercise 301. Now, exercise 302. And finally, exercise 303. It's a good idea to play through the preparatory exercises from lessons 25 and 26 before you attempt these arpeggios. And remember, always practice with your left hand as well as your right.